Good morning, friends. It is Wednesday, just before 8 o'clock. I hope you're having just a wonderful week so far. Hopping on because we're talking winter weather here in the Tennessee Valley and much of the Southeast, which gets a lot of people's attention because we have some pretty significant impacts on the way on Friday. So we want to get you prepared, and let's just take a look and a kind of a deep dive into your forecast here. We'll start with some currents right now. It's in the 20s. We've had even a few light flurries this morning in and around Chattanooga. Very, very fine. I'm talking like probably the size of a flea falling from the sky. But it is cold enough, and we have some low-level moisture. So we've had that, but it's cold. It's been more about the cold. We've had wind chills dropping down. Let's actually look at those wind chills because they've been brutal. Yeah, it feels like 9 in Altamont and 15 in Chattanooga. Again, it's been very cold leading up to this storm, and even today your highs are going to be in the mid to upper 30s, maybe even some upper 20s along the Cumberland Plateau. So this is all setting the stage for an impactful event. A lot of times we have winter weather moving in. It's a little bit warmer ahead of the system, and maybe 2-3 days prior it's in the 60s or 50s or even upper 40s. That's not going to be the case, and each night it's going to get very cold, so the ground already going to be frozen as this precipitation moves in on Friday. So here's a look at some of your alerts. We have winter storm watches that are very expansive. I'm talking from parts of Texas all the way to the Carolinas, including western North Carolina. So really I-20 north going to have a lot of impacts moving into Friday. Already have winter storm warnings in the pink for Arkansas and parts of the Dallas metro. So this is all these winter storm watches from Nashville to Chattanooga to Atlanta to Birmingham to Memphis to Little Rock, all going to have significant impacts as we move forward. And for our coverage area here in the Tennessee Valley, we do have those winter storm watches for accumulating snow, travel impacts, and that's for Southeast Tennessee, including Chattanooga. We have Dunlap, Pikeville, Crossville, up towards Knoxville, Tri-Cities, Nashville, North Georgia, Dalton, Calhoun, down to Atlanta, Murphy, Andrews, over into Cherokee County, Northeast Alabama, we're talking Huntsville, down I-65 into parts of the Birmingham metro area. So going to be a high-impact storm. So where's it at? What's it doing? Right now, it's hanging out near, we'll say Arizona, Baja Peninsula, giving some snow to New Mexico and parts of the Arizona mountains, even the Mexico mountains south of the border getting some pretty decent snow. So essentially what's going to happen here, we're going to have this low pressure that's going to eject out into the Gulf of Mexico, redevelop a surface low, cold air's in place. As that surface low strengthens and rides the coast, it pulls in moisture, and that moisture is going to come right into, well, cold air. When you get that happening here across the Tennessee Valley and much of the Southeast, you get winter weather. So it's going to be a high impact storm. And I know a lot of you watching don't like winter weather. You moved to the South so you don't have to deal with it. Well, this is pretty rare. It's not something we have to deal with all that often. But again, it is something we are going to be contending with here shortly. Again, there's another look at your wind chills. Going to be cold today, cold tomorrow, cold Saturday, cold Sunday. Just a lot of cold on the way. Winter storm likely. Widespread snow beginning Friday morning. We'll look at that timing here shortly. Freezing rain and sleet going to be an issue for parts of North Georgia and North Alabama. That's going to be one of the questions. We're going to have that warm nose, which is warm air in the upper atmosphere, trying to penetrate to the north as the system strengthens. How far to the north does it get? Sometimes that's tough to pinpoint because we have forecast models that give us a good idea, but James Spann has said something that kind of stuck with me. All forecast models are wrong, some are useful, and he is absolutely right because you never know exactly how it's going to play out because the rain-snow line moving 10 miles further north than we anticipated can bust a forecast. I've seen it before. I was waiting for snow I forgot what year it was in South Carolina. We were supposed to get 4 to 10 inches. Couldn't wait. Super excited as a kid. We got about 1.5 inches of snow, and it sleeted, and we got freezing rain the rest of the time, and we didn't get the good snow we wanted, but it turned into an icy mess. So even if we don't have the bigger snow totals, which I still think we will have, if that ice starts to come into the picture, we're going to have just, the roads are going to be bad. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. So here's a look at your timing. We're going to go back here on this. We have the arrival of the snow coming in between about 6 and 8 on Friday morning in Huntsville, Fort Payne, Albertville, down into northeast Alabama. The Tennessee Valley, including the Nashville metro, down to Dunlap, Chattanooga, Dalton, Blue Ridge, LJ, surrounding communities, probably between 8 and 10. And what's going to happen initially is we're going to have this moisture moving into the Tennessee Valley. It's going to be fairly light. So you may see blue by 6, 7 o'clock in the morning on your radar app. That doesn't mean it's going to be hitting the ground. It's going to have to evaporate through that column of dry air first. And as that happens, the snow falls down, it evaporates. But what happens as that snow evaporates, it moistens up that column of air, also helps to cool it down. And that's called evaporative cooling. That process is going to happen. It's also going to help to drop our surface temperature several degrees. That's why I think on the front end of this, we're going to have snow all the way down potentially to the I-20 corridor. And then as time progresses, the storm gets stronger, it pulls in that warm air, and as that warm air gets further to the north, you start to get the freezing rain and sleet mix. We should stay on the snowier side of this, especially north of the Tennessee state line, but sometimes these systems have unwelcome surprises that can ruin a forecast. But we feel pretty confident with the numbers we're putting out this morning. Valley snow checklist. Here's what we have working for us. Usually this is a plateau or mountain event here locally. Chattanooga hasn't had over 6 inches of snow from a single storm since 2015. It's been a decade, a whole 10 years since we've had a really good southern snow event. And I know it's going to cause issues. We really don't have the infrastructure here in place to contend with heavy snow, sleet, and ice. That's why I encourage you all to take those precautions, be prepared as this moves in. If you need to pick up baby formula, if you need to pick up bread, milk, I'm sure it's flying off the shelves, go ahead and do that. Be prepared for this weekend. You might be in the house stuck for a couple of days, especially if you live anywhere with elevation, because those roads, as they get slick, you don't want to be going down a grade. But again, we have the cold air already in place. You walk outside, you know that. Gulf flow, it's going to be forming. We have a pretty good idea of the southerly track it's going to take, and it's going to have plenty of moisture. So that's going to be kicking up into the cold air as we move into, of course, your Friday. So like I mentioned, all those things are coming together for a pretty significant event for here in the valley across much of the southeast. So that's just a general look at what we're dealing with, a broad stroke setup. Here's a look at our winter storm track. Now this is the European model. I'll show you the GFS too. But again, like I said, the models, they give us an idea, but the state of the atmosphere as these systems develop always changes very rapidly. And just a degree or two at the surface, or 1,000 feet in the air, can completely change the outcome of a forecast, because you have snow, and if the column of air is 32 degrees or lower all the way up to the cloud base, you're going to get snow. But if you have a layer of air that's just 100, 200 feet that's above 32, you have the snowflake falling into it, it melts, and then if the cold air isn't thick enough at the bottom of the column, then you may have rain falling, which if the surface temperature, of course, is below 32, that rain freezes on contact, you have an icy mess. So again, there's a lot of variables when you're forecasting winter weather, and we don't have a lot of analogs here in the southeast to compare these storm setups to. We have, a big southern snow maybe every 5 to 10 years that spreads across the entire southeast, which is what we could have here moving into your Friday. So here's a look at your European model. Snow starts to move in. Again, a lot of this will evaporate early on, picking up in intensity right around lunchtime. Dark blue indicates a heavier snow. This is, again, the European model. Moving into the late afternoon and evening, you start to notice that pink showing up across North Georgia, Scottsboro, Lafayette, Dalton, Blue Ridge, Ellijay. We can zoom out a little bit more, starting to transition to more rain along I-20 as this system starts to ramp up. Snow breaking out across the upstate of South Carolina. My parents live right about here where the cursor is. My dad's looking forward to getting some of this snow, so hopefully he can get a solid 3 to 4, 5 inches. Maybe Charlotte getting a little bit of snow. Western North Carolina, but here locally, again, you can see the further north you go, you're going to be in pretty much an all snow event the entire time. And I think most of us will be. I mean, because we have, the evaporative cooling at the front end that cools down the atmosphere. We have the cold air already in place. There's a good snowpack to our north, so that air as it comes down in the next couple of days really not going to moderate all that much. So that's the setup we have. Snow continues through the evening, probably starts to lighten up after about 10 o'clock. And then on the back end of this, I've noticed, just living in the south, as these storms exit, sometimes the warm air gets wafted in, and we can transition to more of freezing rain, freezing drizzle to kind of close things out and put a bow on things early Saturday. And by Saturday morning, we'll probably even get some sunshine. Be a little bit of northwest flow on the back of this along the Tennessee-North Carolina line, and then things wrap up. So that's the European model. That's how things are shaping up. Here's a look at the GFS. Snow coming in maybe a little bit earlier by 5, 6 o'clock. So again, the timing of this can shift around a little bit, but this gives us a good approximation. A little bit of this evaporates moving in, pretty light stuff throughout the morning, non-impactful. When you get those darker blues starting to show up in the afternoon, that's when you're going to have that heavier snow. But again, the pink and even the green starting to show up. This is the GFS. Trying to even move further north, so this has a little more sleet and freezing rain trying to slip into parts of Tennessee. Will that happen? It's really hard to say, but I think the good snow should stay right along the North Georgia border of Tennessee and points to the south, because sometimes the GFS has a little bit of a warm bias, so that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And later today we'll get some short-term model and high-resolution model guidance to go off of as well, which usually do handle these subtle differences a little bit a little bit better closer to time. Again, it's been a long couple of days, lack of sleep, so I apologize if I say a word or two wrong. European totals, paint a pretty solid 3 to 5, maybe even 6 inches across the Tennessee Valley. GFS totals, I think they came in about the same, so anywhere from 4 to 8 inches. Still looks pretty good. We're on track for your forecast. I took a lot of different things into account when making this today. This is a look at my updated snow totals for our area. 2 to 4 inches Calhoun South, plus some icy accumulation down towards the Atlanta metro. Now that 3 to 6, again, if you were watching yesterday, that was 2 to 5 in that light blue. I'm bumping those totals up to a low end 3 to a high end 6 inch amount. Now, of course, if sleet and freezing rain mix in a little bit more, those numbers get undercut a little bit. But Dalton, Blue Ridge, Ellijay, Murphy, Benton, up through Athens, going to have a really good shot at 3 to 6 inches. Now, higher amounts possible across Middle Tennessee, the Cumberland Plateau, even Hamilton, Bradley, Ray, Meigs, Jackson, Dade counties. There's going to be a heavier swath of snow that sets up somewhere on the northern end of this. Middle Tennessee will be the Tennessee Valley. Well, wherever that happens, there's going to be a decent little corridor of higher snow totals of maybe 4 on the low end to 8 inches on the high end. So that's going to be interesting. Again, as these storms start to develop, you can start to see on radar where those bands are going to develop. It's almost impossible to really tell until we get to the event. And I know you hate to hear that, but that's just the way it is. But we do have a pretty good idea of where that may happen. But differences from Chattanooga to Soddy Daisy can be extreme. Last year, I think it was right around MLK Day, we had that storm come through, got about 2 sloppy inches of snow in Chattanooga, but the northern end of Hamilton County got 7-8 inches. So that's another thing. You know, somebody might get 8 inches, somebody might get 2, and those who get 2 are going to be mad and like, well, what happened in the forecast? Well, sorry, it's tough sometimes, but we do the best we can with what we have. But I think this is going to be impactful regardless if you get 2 or 8 inches of snow. We've had the cold air just settling in the last couple of days, so once the snowfall rates pick up, it's going to accumulate quickly. I mean, that's just going to be a given. We don't really have the infrastructure here in the southeast to effectively remove this snow as quickly as they do in the north. With that being said, TDOT, GDOT, NC DOT, Alabama DOT, they're all going to do their best, and I know they're going to do a great job. So if you see a plow out there, move aside, let them do their job. You guys rock. I know you're going to do the best you can to keep our roadways clear, but the secondary and tertiary roads are going to be slick. That's just how it is during these kind of setups. So be prepared for that. I would go ahead and stock up on what you need. If you need baby formula, like I mentioned earlier, I'm sure many of you will flock to get some bread and milk. I already got my gallons. I'm ready to go. But, you know, a lot of people don't like snow. A lot of people don't like cold. A lot of people, this is just going to be a nuisance. So for you, try to enjoy it, but be careful. If you don't have to travel, stay in probably this entire weekend. If you are an essential worker, if you're a nurse, or if you're a doctor, or if you work with the police department or the fire department, hey, you guys rock too. We love you. We appreciate what you do for us. Be safe out there on the roadways, though. If you don't have a 4-wheel drive and the roads get really bad, see if you have a friend that can pick you up. Go ahead and start scheduling that. I just think that's a good word of advice. Now, as for here's the thinkings behind my snow total map. Some of you may see that and laugh. I'm like, that's not going to happen. There's no way. I think there's a pretty good chance that we get a pretty good dumping of snow. So here's the probability of the snow using the GFS ensemble. And again, the ensemble is just the model running with different initializations or starting conditions. There's a lot of physics and high-level math that goes into these computations. And essentially, I'm not going to sit here and do the math, so I'm thankful that we have computers that do this for us. So it runs, 50 to 100 times. We start to get a general idea of what may happen, and then it averages all that is. So that's what the ensemble is. It's just an average of what could happen. Probability of 3 inches of snow, that dark orange shade, that's about a 70 to 80 to even 90% chance of 3 inches of snow. And that hugs the North Georgia line, North Alabama, North Mississippi, even better chance and higher confidence across Knoxville, Middle Tennessee, and parts of the Cumberland Plateau, also including Hamilton County. And then upstate South Carolina, pretty good chance of them getting, 2-3 inches of snow as well. This is the European. It's pretty much the same, pretty much a lock for North Alabama, 90 to 100 percentile. 80 to 90% for most of our coverage area, Northwest Georgia, and this is of 3 inches of snow. But here's the thing. This is the GFS ensemble for 6 inches. It's a lot higher than it was yesterday, about a 30 to 50% chance depending on where you're at across southeast Tennessee, 10 to 30% chance across North Alabama. Somewhere there's going to be a boom scenario. That might set up in Middle Tennessee, North Alabama, North Mississippi, Central Arkansas, where there's going to be probably 7, 8, maybe 9 inches of snow on the backside of this. Western North Carolina, higher elevations, you're getting some of that upsloping, going to be higher amounts as well. So that's also something to consider. But nonetheless, we have a very good shot at seeing accumulating snow, and I just wanted to show you some of the probabilities and tools that I use to formulate a forecast. You can also look at past events. We got February 25th, 2015 here in Chattanooga. We had a Gulf flow riding into some cold air, kicking up that moisture. What happened? Well, Chattanooga ended up with storm total 6.6 inches of snow. Up to 10 inches fell across North Alabama. Is that setup exactly the same? No two setups never are. But here's the thing. They're similar, and that gives us at least an analog of what to look at. So you look at that, you look at some of the forecast models, you look at some of the current observations where the storm's at, where it's heading. Gives you a good idea. So there's a lot that goes into forecasting, like I've mentioned before. So there's going to be surprises with every storm. Some may get more than we expected, some get less, some get more ice. That's just going to happen. I mean, we're forecasting. We're not, clairvoyant here, predicting the future. But I'm pretty confident with this forecast. I am. So I'm going to live and die by it. If it's wrong and we don't get a lot of snow, send me angry letters. That's fine. It's not going to hurt my feelings. But, we do what we can here and try to keep a little bit of levity. I know these situations can be serious and will be serious. There's going to be a lot of issues on the roadway. So be careful. That's all I ask you. If you have a friend or family member who may not have sufficient heating, I encourage you to call them and maybe offer them a spot at your house if you have a generator, just in case the power goes out. Again, more snow is good because we'll have less power outages. More ice is bad because we'll have more power outages because that ice really weighs down the power lines and power poles. So again, a lot goes into this, and I know this is going to impact a lot of people, and many of you are going to, or you might be concerned, and you should be, because winter weather in the South is hard to deal with. We've had trace amounts of ice in Atlanta and in Birmingham before, cause just a traffic snarl. So roadways, again, are going to be bad. I encourage you to pay close attention to the weather. Download your Local 3 weather app. I like Radar Scope for radar if you want to use that. There's a lot of different things to look at. Of course, I'm concerned about things too, because traveling back and forth to work with my wife and make sure that she gets to work safe on Friday and gets home safely. We have a baby, so we want to make sure he has everything he needs ahead of that. I know many of you may have newborns as well, so just make sure you're stocked up and ready to go, and we are. And we'll do what we can to keep you updated and informed as things change, because they will. We're still 48 hours from the event, so there will be minor adjustments to the forecast. But I think overall this gives us a really good, summary of what to expect. Tonight, though, look at these temperatures. Dangerously cold for some. Those wind chills could drop into the single digits if we get any kind of wind. Overnight lows of 19 in Chattanooga, 15 in Athens. So go ahead and start dripping those faucets the next couple of nights. This cold's really not going anywhere. It's going to turn out to be a pretty cold January, I think. as we look ahead to your 7 days, this is for the valley, 38 on Thursday, but look at those overnight lows, well below freezing. And if we do get a good snowpack from this Friday into Saturday, those overnight lows might drop down a little bit. That's why I went ahead and put Saturday night at 16, because if you do have the snowpack, you're naturally going to have colder temperatures. So that's just a broad look at one single point, and that's the Tennessee Valley, your 7-day forecast. Those numbers will be colder for the mountain and plateau and different depending on where you're watching this from. But main messaging here, go ahead and be prepared for this. Winter storm coming in Friday. Snow starts Friday morning, continues and gets heavier during the day on Friday. And then as we move into the overnight hours, it starts to end, and there could be a little bit of sleet, freezing rain mixing in. And of course, there is going to be that boundary of freezing rain and sleet and snow, exactly where that develops. It's going to be close by, so we'll keep an eye on the latest trends today. I'll keep you updated, post on my Facebook, follow me there, follow our Local 3 pages if you can, and have a safe day. Try to stay warm out there.